The night she won $50 million, she stood in my kitchen, still holding the phone, and told me I had until the end of the week to leave my own house. Not a discussion, not a request, an order. 10 years she'd lived under my roof, eating at my table, raising my grandkids in rooms I paid for, and in one phone call, I became a problem she needed gone. I remember the way she looked at me, like I was already out the door, like I didn't belong there anymore. And what hurt the most wasn't the money. It was how fast everything we'd built meant absolutely nothing. My name is Walter Bennett. I'm 74 years old, and that house in Tulsa had been mine since 1989, back when my late wife, June, was still planting roses along the front walk, and my son, David, was just a skinny boy with scraped knees and a paper route. I paid that mortgage on 40 years at the rail yard. I buried my wife from that house. I watched both my grandkids take their first steps in that living room. So when my daughter-in-law, Melissa, straightened her shoulders and told me I needed to be out by Friday, it did not feel like anger. It felt like erasure. David stood near the sink the whole time and said almost nothing. That was the part I still can't shake. He kept his eyes down like a guilty man in church, letting his wife talk to me like I was some renter behind on payments. I asked him, plain and simple, "You agree with this?" He rubbed his jaw, stared at the floor, and muttered, "Dad, maybe it's better if everybody has space for a while." Space. That woman moved into my home in 2016 with 2 suitcases, a 6-year-old boy, a newborn baby, and tears running down her face because David had lost his job and they had nowhere else to go. I gave them my master bedroom and took the small room in back. I covered groceries, utilities, school clothes, braces, and one surgery Melissa still calls a blessing when other people are listening. But the truth is, after a while, gratitude left that house. It was replaced by whispers, closed doors, and little glances that told me I was in the way inside my own walls. That evening, after she gave her order, Melissa smiled at her phone again. Not at me, at the phone, like the money had already made her somebody new. Then she said the part that turned my stomach cold. She said, "And don't start acting confused, Walter. You know exactly why this is happening." I did not know, but David did. And when he finally looked up at me, I knew whatever had been said about me in that house. It had started long before that lottery call. I stood there for a long time after she said that, just listening to the refrigerator hum and the faint noise of traffic out on Garnett Road. Nobody moved. Melissa walked past me like I was a chair that needed to be pushed aside, heading down the hallway to her room. My old room. David stayed where he was, hands braced on the counter, breathing slow like he was trying to steady himself. I said his name once. "David." He didn't answer right away. Just shook his head a little like he didn't want to have the conversation at all. That alone told me this wasn't something that started tonight. This had been building, quietly, behind my back. Finally, he said, "Dad, it's complicated. There's a certain kind of sentence a man uses when he doesn't have the backbone to tell the truth. I'd heard it before, years back, when he got caught lying about a credit card. Same tone, same avoidance. Complicated doesn't get me thrown out of my own house," I told him. "People do." That's when he finally looked at me, and there was something in his eyes I didn't recognize. Not anger, not guilt exactly. Something colder. Like he'd already made peace with whatever story he believed. "She's not making this up," he said quietly. My chest tightened. "Making what up?" He hesitated, and that hesitation said more than anything else. Because if there was something real, something I had done, it wouldn't take him that long to say it. A man doesn't search for the truth. He searches for a lie. "She told me things, Dad," he said. "Things about how you've been acting when I'm not around." I felt my face go hot, then cold all at once. "You think I do something in my own house that I couldn't say out loud to my own son?" "I don't know what to think anymore," he answered. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not loud, not sudden, just a quiet, sinking realization that I was no longer trusted in the one place I had left. From down the hallway, I could hear Melissa laughing softly on the phone, already telling someone about the money, about her new life. Not a word about me, not a word about the man she was throwing out into it. I walked past David without another word and went into the back room. Sat down on the edge of my narrow bed and looked around at what was left of my life. A dresser, a lamp, a few photographs. And that's when I noticed something missing. The old wooden box I kept in the closet, the one nobody was supposed to touch. It was gone. I sat there staring at that empty space in the closet, like it might explain itself if I gave it enough time. That box had been there for years, tucked behind old coats and a spare blanket. Melissa knew better than to go digging through my things. I had told her that more than once, calmly, respectfully. She always nodded, always said, "Of course, Walter. But people say a lot of things when they need something from you." I stood up slower than I used to. Joints stiff, heart heavier than it ought to be. I walked back down that hallway, each step feeling like I was crossing into something I couldn't take back. Melissa was in the living room now, pacing with that same phone pressed to her ear, talking louder this time. "Yeah, we're gonna sell it," she said. "It's in my husband's name anyway. We've just been letting his dad stay there." I stopped right there. Letting me stay there. I felt something sharp settle deep in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "Where's my box, Melissa?" She turned, just for a second, covering the phone with her hand. Her face didn't show surprise. That told me everything. "I moved some things," she said flatly. "You've got too much clutter back there." "That wasn't clutter." She rolled her eyes, already half turned away from me again. "Walter, not now." I stepped closer. "That box had personal things in it, papers, letters. I want it back." She sighed like I was inconveniencing her, like I was a child tugging at her sleeve. Then into the phone again, sweet as anything. "Sorry, just dealing with some stuff here." David came out of the kitchen, drawn by the tension. He looked between us like he was already tired of it, like this was just another argument he didn't want to manage. "Melissa," I said, firmer now. "Where is it?" She finally pulled the phone away and looked me dead in the eye. And there it was again, that same look from the kitchen. Cold, certain, like she held all the cards now. "Why are you so worried about it?" she asked. "You got something in there you don't want people to see?" The room went quiet in a way I can't properly describe. Like the air itself had pulled back to watch what happened next. David shifted beside her. "What's she talking about, Dad?" I felt my throat tighten, not from guilt, but from the realization that whatever she had taken, whatever she had looked at, she wasn't just cleaning. She was building something, and I could already see it in her face. She wanted me to defend myself before I even knew the accusation. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and said, "You're letting her turn this into something it's not." Melissa smiled just a little at that. Not kind, not warm, just satisfied. Then she said the words that made my stomach drop. "Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like." And that's when I understood this wasn't about the house anymore. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. I sat in that back room with the door cracked open, listening to the house I built feel less and less like mine with every passing hour. Around midnight, I heard Melissa's voice again, low this time, careful. She thought I was asleep. "She doesn't know yet," she said, "but once we show it, it's over. He won't have anywhere to go." I leaned forward in my chair, every muscle in my body tightening. She wasn't talking about money. She wasn't talking about the house. She was talking about me, like I was something that needed to be handled. David's voice came next, quieter. "Are you sure about this?" A pause, then Melissa again, sharper this time. "You saw it. Don't start backing off now." I didn't hear his answer, just footsteps, then silence. I sat there until the sky started to lighten over Tulsa, trying to piece together what she thought she had. That box. It had old letters, documents, things from before Melissa was ever part of this family. Some of it wasn't pretty, I'll admit that. Life rarely is when you've lived long enough. But nothing in there, nothing, could justify what she was doing. By morning, the house felt different, colder. Melissa didn't say a word to me, just moved around like I was already gone. David left early, barely looking in my direction. The grandkids were at school, and for the first time in years, the place was quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful. It felt staged. Around noon, I decided I wasn't going to sit there waiting to be pushed out like some old piece of furniture. I walked down the hall and opened the door to what used to be my bedroom. Melissa was inside, sitting on the edge of the bed, my wooden box open beside her. She didn't even flinch when she saw me. "You shouldn't be in here," she said. "That's my box," I answered. She placed her hand on top of it. Slow, deliberate, like she was claiming it. Not anymore. I stepped closer, and that's when I saw what she had laid out on the bed. Papers, old letters, and one photograph I hadn't looked at in years. My stomach dropped. "You went through all of it," I said. "Every single piece," she replied. "And you know what I found?" Her voice didn't rise, didn't shake. That calmness, it was worse than anger. David stepped into the doorway behind me, like he'd been waiting for this moment. Melissa picked up the photograph and held it between her fingers. "You've been lying to this family for a long time, Walter." I felt something inside me start to crack. Not because she found something, but because of the way she said it, like she already had the verdict. I looked at my son, hoping, just once, he'd question her. He didn't. Melissa tilted the photo toward him and said, "Go ahead, ask him who that really is." And that's when I realized they weren't guessing anymore. They thought they knew the truth. I looked at that photograph, and for a second, just a second, I didn't recognize it myself. Not because it wasn't mine, but because it belonged to a version of me I hadn't let into this house in a long time. It was taken back in 1978, outside a courthouse in Oklahoma City. I was younger, thinner, standing next to a woman holding a little girl. We were all smiling, the kind of smile people put on when they're trying to convince themselves everything's fine. "That's not Mom," David said behind me. His voice was tight now. "So who is it?" I took a breath, slow and careful, because I could already see where Melissa was going with this. She wasn't confused. She had built a whole story around what she found, and she needed it to be true. "That's Carol," I said. "And that little girl is your daughter," Melissa cut in, sharp and quick. "A daughter you never told anyone about." The room went still. David's silence hit harder than anything she said. I could feel him stepping back, not physically, but in his mind, putting distance between himself and me like I'd become something unfamiliar. "I was going to tell you," I said, turning toward him. "Years ago, but things didn't work out the way it should have." Melissa let out a quiet laugh. "Didn't work out? That's what you call abandoning a child?" "That's not what happened," I said, firmer now. But she was already shaking her head, holding up one of the letters. "I read them, Walter. All of them. She wrote to you for years, asking for help. Asking you to be part of her life. And you ignored her." I felt something twist deep in my chest. Not guilt, not exactly, but the weight of a truth that never sounds right when someone else tells it. "I didn't ignore her," I said. "I made payments. I made sure she was taken care of." "Money!" Melissa snapped. "You sent money? That's what you think being a father is?" David finally spoke, but his voice was different now. Distant. "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at him. My son, standing in that doorway like a stranger measuring me. "Because it was complicated," I said quietly. The second the words left my mouth, I knew how it sounded. Melissa smiled again, slow and satisfied. "There it is." She stepped closer to David, placing the photograph in his hand like evidence in a courtroom. If he could hide something like this for decades, what else do you think he's capable of? "That's enough," I said, but it came out weaker than I intended, because now I understood. This wasn't just about the past. She wasn't exposing something. She was reshaping it. And then she said the one thing that made everything fall into place. "I already spoke to her, David." My head snapped toward her. "You did what?" Melissa met my eyes, steady and unflinching. "She's coming." The house was quiet when the knock finally came. Not loud, not urgent. Just 3 steady taps on the front door like whoever stood out there already knew they belonged. Melissa didn't rush. She walked past me, slow, almost calm, like this had all been planned down to the minute. David stood frozen near the hallway, that photograph still in his hand, staring at it like it might change if he looked long enough. I didn't move at first. I couldn't. My legs felt heavy, like the floor itself was holding me in place. The knock came again. Melissa opened the door. I didn't see her face right away. The woman standing there, just a silhouette against the afternoon light. Then she stepped forward, and everything in me tightened. She had my eyes. Older now, late 40s, maybe early 50s. Lines around them that didn't come from easy living. She looked past Melissa, straight into the house, searching. And then she saw me. For a moment, nobody said anything. Not her, not me, not David. Just silence, thick and heavy. Melissa stepped aside like she was presenting something she'd been waiting to unveil. "Go on," she said softly. "You've both got things to talk about." The woman took a few steps in, slow, careful, like she wasn't sure the ground would hold. "Walter," she said, hearing my name in her voice. After all those years, it didn't feel like anger. It felt like something unfinished. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Behind me, I heard David shift. Then his voice, tight, strained. "This is her?" Nobody answered him. The woman kept her eyes on me. "I wrote to you," she said. "For years." "I know," I managed. "You never came." The words landed simple. No yelling, no accusation, just truth, laid out plain where everyone could see it. "I had my reasons," I said. Melissa let out a quiet breath behind her, almost like she'd been waiting for that exact line. The woman nodded slowly, like she expected nothing else. Then she looked around the house. The walls, the pictures, the life she hadn't been part of. And something in her expression changed. Not sadness, not anger. Something colder. "So this is where you stayed," she said. I didn't like the way she said it. David stepped forward now, confusion turning into something sharper. "What does that mean?" She turned to him, studying his face the same way she had mine, taking him in, measuring something. Then she said it. "I came here because she told me the truth." My chest tightened. "What truth?" The woman looked back at me, and for the first time, there was no hesitation in her voice. "That you weren't just absent," she said. "That you were dangerous." The word hung in the air like it had weight. David's hand dropped to his side. Melissa didn't move, and I stood there, in the middle of my own house, realizing I was already gone. If this story meant something to you, subscribe. There's more to come.